Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is the first virtual sales meeting of the Douglasville branch of Maximum One Greater Atlanta. And today is Tuesday, April 21st. And I just want to welcome everybody. And I'm just going to have a couple of comments, and then the majority of this meeting is going to be Linda Kennedy telling us about the status of lending right now, and Shawn Horan telling us about closings right now. But just a couple things before we get started. If you are not aware, Governor Kemp in his press conference yesterday did announce what he is doing for our state, and Georgia is part of a regional coalition with South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, regarding opening the states back up for business in increments. The shelter in place is still in effect till April 30th, and that was per his last executive order, but he's not extending it past that. Regardless of that, real estate is what is technically considered a critical infrastructure workforce in the state of Georgia as defined by Homeland Security. So we are able to work, we have been able to work, but with the opening up of the state of Georgia beginning in May, and some of the businesses are opening up as soon as Friday and others beginning Monday. My comment to you, I'm going to keep any opinions and political comments to myself, because I have found there is a huge diversity in people's feelings about opening up the state of Georgia. But from a professional perspective for real estate has been open for you guys this whole entire time. There are buyers and sellers that need your services because of people's personal feelings for whatever reason. There is going to be a lot of opportunity for any real estate agent who is comfortable working right now. There are a lot of real estate agents that I've seen on my Facebook feed who are not comfortable going out and interacting right now. So depending on if you are comfortable, if the clients with whom you're working are comfortable, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, because real estate is, not only is it essential, you guys, it is vital, not only to our local communities, but to our country as a whole. Economically, the housing market is a huge part of economy, and you guys got your real estate licenses to help people buy and sell, and it is just an enormous segment of the economy. So just wanted to make that comment because Governor Kemp did make that announcement yesterday. And feel free to Google it or go to Governor Kemp's office online to look for all the specifics of how the state of Georgia is opening up businesses and what is required. Additionally, I have created in the reference section of Paperless Pipeline a folder that is called COVID-19 forms. There is a ton of information in there for you guys, and the information that is in there is it has the Homeland Security, essential businesses, it has the Georgia executive order, it has the showing protocol that we have come up with, it has the buyer brokerage addendum that we have come up with to protect you guys showing properties during this time right now. It also has the GAR special stipulation. Now, GAR came out with COVID-19 special stipulation last month. They just revised it on April 17th. So I announced the revision to the GAR COVID-19 special stip in Sunday's email that just came out, and that is also in the in the reference section of Paperless Pipeline under the COVID-19 forms. The biggest difference, the first GAR COVID-19 special stip basically just accounted for delays in closings based on a COVID-related event. The revision that they just came out with last week provides for termination rights with no penalty for a buyer if a buyer terminates based on a COVID-related event. Now, I will tell you, it is also further defined. A buyer losing their job or a buyer being furloughed does not count as, will not protect their earnest money if they have to terminate under that special stip. So please take a look at that. Like any special stipulation, whether you're negotiating for that in a purchase and sale agreement or negotiating for that as an amendment, it is not a part of the contract unless the buyer and seller agree to it. So right now, without any special stipulations or agreements, if a buyer was pre-approved and you get down to closing and the lender has changed the requirements, not even the lender, him or herself, but the minimum credit scores, some of the, the buyer doesn't have their job, so their income isn't the same, their hours have been cut. If the underwriting guidelines for that loan have changed and the buyer is outside of their financing contingency, if the buyer terminates, the buyer is going to be in default of the contract, regardless of the reason that they are no longer qualified. Now, if a buyer and a seller are under contract and that is the case, and the buyer has to terminate, there is nothing that says in a TNR, a buyer and a seller, even if a buyer is contractually in default of the contract, a seller can agree to give a buyer back the earnest money, or a buyer and a seller can agree to negotiate for the earnest money. All the holder needs is written agreement signed by the buyer and the seller directing the holder how to disperse those funds. So it might be in the buyer's and seller's best interest to negotiate for that. Not in the best interest, but in their heart, so to speak, because of what is going on. But that is something to take into account if the contract does not include a special stipulation that governs one of those situations. Now, some of you guys have found that if you are under contract and the buyer is one of the iBuyers, and the iBuyer is pulling out, all the iBuyers have pulled out of all the contracts. Their contracts do have what's called a force majeure clause in those contracts. So those iBuyers are terminating and their earnest money is protected. Neither the GAR nor the RE forms have that force majeure clause in there. GAR used to, they took it out. I have a feeling, a strong suspicion that GAR will add that clause back in there again. In essence, and Shawn can talk a little bit more about this, but in essence, it is basically a global issue. If a buyer has to terminate because of sort of like an act of God or something beyond their control, they can terminate with protection for their earnest money. I hate using that term, act of God, because I do not think COVID-19 is an act of God, just like I don't think a house burning down or being destroyed by tornado or hurricane. I don't think those are God's acts, but I will leave that conversation there. I will also let you know that the Douglasville office does have full-time staff Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And just want to thank Heidi Kelly. Thank you so much, Heidi. And Michelle Amendola. We are back up and running. The Powers Ferry office has full-time staff from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. The Paulding office will have staff again May 1st. And all the other offices are full-time staff Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We are all accessible by email and on the support line. I will also let you know that for virtual CE classes, the calendar has been posted. We are going to have virtual CE classes for the month of May. I'll be working on that calendar starting the end of this week. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it is very interesting technology, and we've got a lot of opportunity. I taught a license law class last week and had 420 students on there. So it's pretty exciting for us. The reporting and getting the reports and making the CE credits is definitely challenging, and Heidi Kelly is the coordinator of the school, and she has her hands full with coordinating. There's 4 reports we have to coordinate to get a roster for CE credit. But the cool thing for you guys is y'all have the opportunity to attend a class where the instructor is located somewhere geographically where you would never, ever go to hear that class. So please check out the calendar. Again, we're working on the May calendar at the end of this month. That's really all I have to say, unless you guys have any questions. I think between Linda and Shawn, there is plenty to talk about. And so I am going to let Linda speak. If you guys have a question, you can click the little microphone icon and unmute yourself, or there is a chat box. If you bounce your mouse towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see chat. That opens up a chat box to the right where you can type in messages. But Linda, why don't you go ahead and tell us what is going on in the crazy world of lending right now and introduce yourself to everyone. Hang on, you're muted still. Oops. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the crazy world right now. I hope everyone's staying safe. Dana, that was some great information that you just gave us. And I'm so glad you set this up, because I know I've had several realtors saying we really need this so we can find out what's going on in the mortgage world. So this is really good. There were a couple of weeks that
Linda, but I'm recording this, so if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are and what company and all that kind of stuff, because I'm going to post this recording.
Gotcha. So this is Linda Kennedy. I am the regional president with American Eagle Mortgage and the in-house lender for the Douglasville office. Can everyone hear me okay? Wonderful. So in the world of mortgages, it did get a little crazy there for a couple of weeks. Everyone was emailing and asking me, did FHA, VA, did they change the guidelines? And actually VA, FHA never changed the guidelines. It was the investors that we get the money from that changed the guidelines. So all of a sudden, almost overnight, most of the investors halted lending on anything below a 680. I don't know if any of you were affected on that. But then within the next few days after they did that, we started to gradually see the guideline change for what they would allow for credit scores. So right now at American Eagle, we can go down to a 600 on our credit scores. We have added some overlays that we never had before for those 600s. They're not really bad, but I will tell you the max ratios are a 37-47 on anyone with a 600 to a 619. They do want to see 2 month reserves of their own funds. Regardless if they're a first-time home buyer or not, we are requiring that the borrower do a home buyer counseling. It's an easy counseling that they do online, and it's free for them. It takes them about 30 minutes. And then we won't allow gift funds on any of the loans with a 600 to a 619. So really not that bad with us going down that low on the credit scores. On the 620 plus, we must have, we won't allow for manual underwrites. So the loans must go through automated underwriting in order to go down below the 640. But other than that, 640 and above, we're business as usual. USDA, business as usual, and VA, business as usual. The one thing that you will see a major difference in the past, regardless of what your credit score was, you typically did not have to pay any points or origination based on what your credit score was. We could just offer a little bit higher interest rate. But what you're seeing right now across the board, if you're below a 640, there's going to be a charge for the rate. There's not even a rate on the board that pays back any money to where it's not a charge. So a good rule of thumb, anywhere from a 600 to a 619, it's going to cost about 1.5 to 2 points for the borrower. Anything between a 620 to a 640, you're looking at least a 1.5% charge. So that's a big deal, because when you're out negotiating those contracts, you're going to need to try to negotiate that in that the seller pay that. So that's some of the way that we've been saving some of these deals, is if the appraisals have come in for a little bit higher, we're going back and increasing the sales price and increasing the seller paid contributions. And then in some cases, the borrowers are just willing to pay whatever it's getting, whatever it's costing to get them to the table if their scores are that low. Now, our game plan at American Eagle has been, if you're below a 600, we're trying to get you up to at least a 600. We have had many successful closings doing that. We've gotten our 580s up to 600, 610s, and we're able to get them closed. Even if they're a 620, we're going to even try to get them above a 620 just so that we can get that amount reduced. because as we know, people in that price range or in those scores typically don't have money to be paying for the interest rates. I do see things relaxing day by day. Right now, I'm sure you're all well aware that the bank statement programs are temporarily suspended, and I do see those being suspended probably through the end of July. I think we'll start to see that stuff coming back around the 1st of August. Home equity lines of credit, a lot of companies have stopped doing those on standalones, meaning if you want to just go to your bank and do a home equity line of credit, you can't do that unless you're purchasing a home. But we are still doing home equity lines of credit. This is a pretty big deal here in Georgia. We can go up to a 95%. So what we're doing right now, because the jumbo market has really taken a hit, what we're doing is we're getting the conforming loan limit down to the 510, 400, and then doing a second mortgage up to 90 or 95%. I see all these cute little doggies popping up. A 90 to 95%, which is a big deal because the jumbo market has taken such a hit right now that most jumbo loans are requiring 20% down. So we can still do some combination financing up to 95%. And the first mortgage we can do on the conforming loan and get their rates down in the 3s. So that's a really good thing. So other than that, I think we covered a lot there. I would like to open it up for questions just to see what's going on out on your side and see if there's anything that I can answer for anyone.
Hey, Linda, this is Rosalind.
Hey, Rosalind.
Hey, I want to know, have they brought back the 203K and the home style rehab loans? Because I know they put a freeze on those for a while.
We can do the 203K, but we cannot do the home style renovation yet. I actually have a call with my investor tomorrow that's doing those. So I feel like they're about to open those back up. But 203K, we're still able to do those.
Awesome.
Yep, and we can do that down to a 600.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, Linda, should we increase the financing contingency time frame?
We're really getting loans approved pretty quick here. Give me an idea of why we would want to do that. Maybe to get a rescore, or just because you think things are taking longer?
Yeah, I kind of thought that things were taking longer, and it just seems like that would have been the smartest thing to do.
Right.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, right now we are not backlogged. We're 24 hours in underwriting. We're moving pretty quickly. So we're still able to do loans 15 to 21 days, even sooner if we need to. And now if we've got a specific borrower that we're working on, and I think there may be an issue with them, I will ask you maybe to do a 30-day financing just because of something specific going on with that borrower. But right now we're business as usual on that end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Linda, it's Rosalind. One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you guys had an investor that you were going to open up a new program to help homeowners fix their homes so we could sell them at a higher price. Is that on hold until this whole thing blows over?
It is on hold. Actually, I was supposed to fly out to Texas, and the weekend we were to do that was the weekend the whole country went on hold. So they are halting that because it is a proprietary program. So the investors that were investing in that, of course, are holding off. And I think that should be back around June 1st. And okay. I hope to have all the details and guidelines for it. Basically, what it's going to be is they're going to lend up to $50,000. It will be a consumer loan, and there will be no payments due for the first 6 months. So okay. It's going to allow your seller to do whatever necessary repairs on the house to get it ready to sell. They will have to sign an agreement with you that you will be the listing agent in order for us to do the agreement for the installment arrangement. So it's going to protect you as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, it's going to be a great product. I can't roll that out to you. Any other questions anyone can think of?
Linda, what are you seeing right now with appraisals in terms of timing and in terms of values?
We are seeing the same turn times. I am seeing a lot of values coming in a little bit lower, $5,000 to $10,000 lower. And then I'm seeing a lot of appraisers that have fear in entering the homes. VA and FHA still has not changed their guidelines, but Fannie and Freddie have laxed a little bit on what they will allow. In some instances, we are only requiring a drive-by appraisal so that the appraiser does not have to enter the home. So if once we look at the loan and it goes through that system to show that it isn't approve eligible, we will let you know if this particular appraiser and appraisal qualifies for the drive-by so that they don't have to enter the home. But Fannie and Freddie have both recognized that some appraisers do not want to go into the homes and some of the sellers do not want the appraisers in the home. So they've come up with some ways to get around that. We had talked about it a little bit in one of our last meetings, but we have something now we're doing that's called Day One Certainty. I don't know if any of you have heard that yet. That's going to be a big term that you're going to be hearing a lot in the mortgage industry. What it is just a more streamlined approval. And when we run the loan through our automated underwriting system, in some cases, we're actually getting property waivers. You're going to hear it as the term called a PIW, and it's just a property inspection waiver. So if you hear that, that means that there is absolutely no appraisal required. And we're actually doing a lot of refinances right now. And when we run it through the system, we're getting property waivers. So we're not even requiring appraisals on some of the properties, which is huge.
What would you suggest to agents to do if you get the notification and the approval that a property can be appraised by a drive-by appraisal to try and avoid a low value coming in?
Uh-oh, Dana, my computer cut off. So ask me again.
So my question is, what would you advise to our agents if you do get the notification and the approval for a drive-by appraisal? How can we prevent some of these low values coming in? Basically, I would imagine a lot of these low values are coming in from these drive-by appraisals.
No, with the drive-by appraisal, we haven't seen any low values. The ones that we've seen the lower values on are the full appraisals, and they're typically the FHA appraisals. I've not seen a lot of conventional appraisals come over low. But when they do a drive-by, it's the same form, the same appraisal. All of the work is done on the appraisal. It's just they don't go inside the house. So I know that they're communicating with the agent if there's any upgrades or anything particularly that the appraiser would need to see inside the home. So I don't think we've seen any values come in low because it is a drive-by.
So you guys, when you guys are listing properties in FMLS and Georgia MLS, make sure you really put a pretty good description and take as many pictures as you can. I think that's going to help. In general, that helps with appraisals regardless. If you do get the contact information of the appraiser, if you think it's going to be iffy or on the edge, especially if we are increasing some sale prices to account for some seller contributions to buyers, you guys pull your comps and help the appraiser out. I think anybody helps, as long as you present that information to the appraisers, trying to be helpful, not trying to tell them how to do their job. Anybody can benefit from the help. And what you saw as the listing agent to price the house, and even as the selling agent, how you helped your buyer come up with a price to buy the house. And those are just good strategies in any market, regardless of what we're going through right now.
That's a great idea. And some of the appraisers may ask you to do like a little video, a virtual video, but just make sure the appraiser knows any upgrades. And like she said, send pictures, send descriptions so that they know what you were using, as far as where you were coming up with what your value was. That's a great idea.
Awesome. Anybody else with questions? Linda, I have another question. We saw the lending guidelines with the credit scores and, based on what investors are accepting because of the risk tolerance right now and their fears that with buyers losing jobs, hours being furloughed, all of a sudden having other payments that they have to pay, not taking the risks that they were previously willing to take. And we saw it was almost like every hour, everything was changing. Have you seen that sort of steady out a little bit, or are you still seeing daily or weekly changes in what the investors are willing to take for underwriting guidelines?
We were definitely seeing hourly changes. It was insane there for just a couple of days. I don't know, but I just saw this morning where the ruling came out that any servicers are going to be allowed to not make mortgage payments for 4 months. So what that means is if your loan is not sold directly to Fannie, Freddie, or Ginnie, then it is sold to a servicer. So you may see that you're making your payments to Plaza Mortgage. So Plaza Mortgage got the okay this morning that for the next 4 months, or if a borrower applies for forbearance, they're also going to get a forbearance. So what that means is they are not going to have to make their payments. So Plaza will not have to make their payments to Fannie, Freddie, or Ginnie. So that's going to have these investors loosen up a little bit more. Their fear was they were still going to have to make their payments, even though a borrower was going to apply for forbearance and not pay them. Their fear was they were still going to have to pay where they got the money from. But this morning, there was a ruling that says for 4 months, they will not have to pay. So I definitely think we're going to see the investors going, okay, we're going to loosen up a little bit now. Because the fear that we were hearing is everybody's going to close on these loans, and then the first 30 days, they're going to apply for a forbearance. So no money in, no money out, basically. And that's why all of the investors were running scared and basically saying we're going to kind of put a halt on lending money because we just don't know what's going to happen. So with everything relaxing a little bit, I see everything going back to normal. I would say within the next 3 weeks for sure.
And then on the topic of forbearance, will you just educate our agents a little bit because their clients are asking them what that means, that it's not a tack on at the end, but what happens at the end of forbearance?
So the forbearance is, and I also put a good post on my Facebook about this, just if you want to look at it, but it depends on the lender that is servicing your loan, and every lender is looking at it differently. I have one borrower this morning. He's a server. He's lost his job. Of course, he's been without his income for over a month, and he was with U.S. Bank. So he called U.S. Bank, and they did allow him to do a forbearance for 3 months. But in 3 months, the full 3 months of payments plus interest and penalties are due. That is of no help to him. I have a borrower. She was serviced by Wells Fargo. She called Wells Fargo, and whatever her situation was, they're actually going to take 3 months and tack it on to the end of the loan. So in 3 months, she will not have the 3 months that become due with penalties or interest. They're just going to add it to the balance of the loan. So it is definitely a servicer guideline. So anybody that's asking you what they do, you want them to find out who is currently servicing their loan and have them call the servicer and give their specific situation. And I do think, I think based on what your situation is, are you truly laid off? Were you let go? I think that also determines what type of forbearance you're going to get. But if anybody can continue to make their payments, I know when this first came out, everybody was emailing and calling, hey, I'm just not going to make my payments for the next 3 months. You know, everybody gets free, no mortgage. That's not the way it works. And of course, you know that as being real estate agents, but just make sure your borrowers read the fine print and know what their forbearance looks like. Because the last thing that we want to see is all of these payments, penalties, and interest coming due in 3 months. Nobody's going to have the money to pay $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in 3 months when this is due. And for the first time in a long time, a lot of people have equity in their houses. So the banks are not going to be as lenient as they were in 2007 and 2008. They were so lenient because there was no equity there. Everybody was negative. But right now, it seems a lot of people have equity in their property. So the banks are going to be demanding they get their money back pretty quickly, in my opinion. And that's what we're hearing across the board.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. Great information. Anybody else, any more questions for Linda?
Linda, this is Kevin. Just on investment loans, just straight 20% right now. They're still doing them, but there's nothing less than 20%, maybe even like a 10% option or 15%. Are those out the window right now, or is that available?
Hey, Kevin. So we typically can do an 85% investment purchase, but right now we are down to 80%. Yeah. I do see that coming back within the next 3 weeks, the 85% investment. And the lender that we're partnering up with for these second mortgages, they're talking about coming in and offering second mortgages on the investment properties going up to 90%. So that's something that I see the 1st of July being available, which is really going to help a lot of these investors.
Awesome.
Good question.
All right. Thank you so much. Shawn, you ready to tell us what is going on? I'm going to unmute you. You ready to tell us what is going on in the world of closings?
I would love to. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
No, we cannot see you, but we can hear you. We see Shawn's iPhone.
Yeah, I'm on my third or fourth device at this point. Every computer in my office, or my house, excuse me, appears to be losing internet as I go on. So I gave up on the computers and on my phone. But I'm trying to figure out how to get my, I could see you guys a minute ago, but I can't now. I'm gonna actually get my IT person to help me. Shauna, can you figure out how to get this on? Give me 1 second, Dana.
Okay, in the meantime, while you're working that out, Linda, we have another question. If the Chinora program is still available and have any of the guidelines for that changed?
Very good question. So Chinoa is still available. The rates on that are really good right now, and Georgia Dream is still available. And one thing I did want to say is most of the banks, I don't know if you're seeing this, but most of the banks, BB&T, SunTrust, Bank South, they all have changed their guides across the board to where they can't lend below a 680. Are a lot of you seeing that? Or do you do any business with banks?
I am seeing that in contracts and hearing that from agents with other contracts where they're going through other lenders that yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a lot of loan officers, of course, that work at a couple of these, and they're sending the loans over to us to help save them. So right now, I feel like we're in the hot seat that we can go down to a 600. And if we have someone, you know, putting 15 or 20% down on a 580, we could even probably do that too. I've got one right now that's a 577, and the borrower's putting 50% down. So case by case, we can help to still save some of these low credit score borrowers.
I think the biggest key, you guys, is communication. Y'all stay in touch with Linda on a regular basis. Stay in touch with Shawn on a regular basis, so that you can, you know, find out as soon as there's a change that occurs, you can address it with the other agent and get amendments in place where the buyer and the seller can be comfortable doing what they need to do to move forward. Sometimes it might be a little bit of a delay. Sometimes it might be changing the loan. I will let you know that if you guys are under contract for a specific type of loan and the buyer changes the loan, you must do an amendment. You must get the seller's permission for that loan change. If not, and the buyer terminates under the financing contingency on a different loan than what was in the contract, the buyer's earnest money is not going, the buyer will be in default.
If we're still waiting on Shawn, there are a couple of more things I could touch on as well too.
I'm here whenever you guys are ready, but go ahead, Linda.
Okay, I was going to say there is a couple of things we're running into with the IRS. Right now, we're not able to get installment arrangements, and we're also not able to get tax transcripts. So we have come up with a plan for the transcripts. If someone needs to file their taxes to qualify, we are able to accept proof that they electronically filed, and we don't have to have the transcript, so that's really good. But if they owe money, the problem that we're running into is typically if someone owes money to the IRS, all we have to do is show an installment arrangement and that they've paid one payment. But right now, the IRS is not taking any installment arrangements. So just keep that in mind if you have someone who's about to file their taxes to qualify. If they owe, they would have to pay off the amount due or would have to wait until the installment arrangement can be completed.
And one more quick question, Linda, about the Georgia Dream $15,000. I heard that that's going away. And also, Fran wants to know, what are the counties still within Georgia that have the $15,000 program?
It is going away. The last reservation, I can pull all those dates up. I was actually going to bring it to the sales meeting. I can let everybody know we're still good because the last reservation I want to say is in September. And
the last reservation is June 30th and it must close by September.
That's what, yeah, I'm sorry. So
okay.
We still have a little bit of time. And then there's Henry County, DeKalb, Fulton, Bibb, and Muskogee that's left. But yeah, I'm going to bring a flyer. Hopefully by May, you think we'll be able to do our sales meeting?
We're definitely doing our CE classes virtually by May.
Okay.
According to Governor Kemp's we can have them in person. So I need to get with the branch managers and Dave and figure out if we have it in person, we still might broadcast it virtually for those who are not comfortable yet coming. But we're figuring that out as we speak.
Okay. So I'll get all that over there. We just had our advisory board meeting last week, and they did give us all of the dates. And on Georgia Dream, I don't know, but this can make a little bit of a difference. You can't have owned a home in the last 36 months now. It used to be 3 years, and you're probably thinking in your mind, well, that's the same. But actually, when you look at it on a calendar, it can actually get someone in there about 8 or 9 months sooner. So instead of 3 years, it's 36 months from the time they last owned a home. So that's another change. The income limits did go up for Georgia Dream. And they are actually, I'm on the advisory board. And one of the things that we're proposing is that the amount for Georgia Dream be changed to $10,000. We're seeing that the $5,000 just isn't really even covering someone's down payment. So I do think there's going to be some big changes coming for Georgia Dream that's going to help us a lot.
And Linda, feel free to email a flyer to Heidi, and she can print it and put it out in the office.
I will do that. I'll email the dates for the hardest hit funds, so you know when the last reservation and the last close date can be on that.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, Shawn.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you and see you.
Wonderful. Let me turn this down. I'm on my iPhone as well, so that when my computer goes out, I hopefully will still have connection with you all. But I'm getting this reverberation, there it goes. Get rid of the echo. Okay. Again, my name is Shawn Horan. I'm with Horan Law Group. I'm also of counsel with Don Defoor, PC, here in Douglasville. I am the preferred attorney with Maximum One's Douglasville office. I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. Wanted to start off with talking about first few changes, obviously, in our world that we're dealing with on the closing side. We have gone to a new platform of closings that I refer to affectionately as parking lot closings. You can call them parking lot drive-through closings if you'd like, but for the most part, we are conducting them either in our parking lot or in our downstairs back lobby to be able to accommodate individuals and keep them socially distant from us while we're going over the paperwork and signing the documents, as well as to make sure everybody stays safe and we don't have any contamination with the party's agent, closing attorney, or lender. With that being said, we are implementing and have implemented safeguards for everybody's protection. First, of course, I will be out there with gloves and a mask on to make sure that I don't potentially infect anybody. We're also, anybody that comes to closing and assigning a closing gets a brand new fancy blue pen from our office that they get to keep. And we also have, of course, other safeguards, whether it be duplicate copies of documents so that you sign one stack and then they go straight into the envelope to go back to the lender, and then the copy file is yours to keep, which is a clean copy file. We also have it that we don't have to touch your IDs, so we're just copying your photo IDs or taking pictures of them and then emailing them so we can print those out for the file. We're doing it so that we have as little contact with the parties as possible for everybody's protection. We're also making sure after each closing we are sanitizing the table and the chair down where you'll be sitting at or where your party will be sitting at to make sure that you guys are all and your clients are all staying protected. Our files are being processed as normal at this time. We're thankfully able to run our operation pretty much remotely. So our office is not staffed right now, but our phones are being forwarded. So if you call the office, you will get to a live person and they can either take a message or get you to myself. While I'm speaking about that, I typically reserve my cell phone number to emergencies and dealing with individuals, so I don't publicize that. But given the current pandemic, I'm going to go ahead and provide that to everybody.
Shawn, I'm recording this and going to post it. So if you don't want to give it, that's
good point. I'll send an email to everybody about that then. Good point, Dana. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and email everybody as my cell number. That way you guys have that contact information should you need me. But of course, I am on the email pretty much all day long. So if you need to reach out to me via email, I will get it relatively quickly and can reply to you. With respect to our closings, if you want to coordinate a closing, of course, we are asking that they be coordinated, that the buyers and the sellers come at different times. We're trying to have them, we don't have a buyer coming at 9 o'clock in the morning, a seller coming at 5:30 in the afternoon, of course, but we are trying to keep them about a half an hour apart from each other so that one comes at 1 o'clock, for example, and the other party will come at 1:30. And we're able to relatively stay on schedule. It takes a little bit longer because while we're going through the process, of course, I have to get everything copied and sent for funding, and I'm a one-man show when I go back in there to get everything coordinated after the closing is complete. But it is working right now, and just budget a little bit more time because we have parties signing separately when you come to closing with your clients. Speaking of which, we've had several agents who have expressed an interest in being present at closing. The message that's coming from my office may have sent a mixed signal. My position is that agents are welcome at my closing with restrictions. I do not wish to have agents out in the parking lot with us while we're signing. If they wish to pull their car up next to where the table is, open their window and listen through the window, that is perfectly fine. If they wish to stay away from the office during the closing and be on FaceTime or other audio, I'm happy to accommodate that as well. If they wish to get out of their car and be present outside, we do ask that they stay at least 10 feet back from the table and make sure they socially distance themselves from the other parties that will be coming to the closing. We're doing this for everybody's safety, of course. And forgive me, Dana, there is probably a good bit of the meeting that I've missed based on my technology woes trying to get on with y'all. So if these are things that have already been discussed, I apologize if I'm being repetitive. I missed about half of the discussion here. The closing documents, once we have them executed, are going back to the lender, of course. If you have a party that prefers a mail out, as long as we can get those documents back by the day of closing, we are happy to accommodate a mail out and actually prefer a mail out at this time. We are not charging fees for mail out closings. So in the past, of course, most firms, including ours, did charge a mail out fee for the additional processing time involved. We are waiving those fees. We also get hit with a wire fee to send wires out from our bank, and we're negotiating with our bank right now to get those removed, I'm hoping. But for the time being, we are also not charging wire fees. So if you like to have your commission wired at any time, we can, of course, accommodate that. If you wish to have, if your clients wish to have their funds wired to them, not a problem as well. We're waiving the fees on that.
Sean, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. That would be you wire, if a DA is approved,
I'm going there.
DA approval, that is you wiring the agent's commission directly to them. You guys, Maximum One does not accept the overall gross commission check wired to us because, number one, there is a delay in closing out that file. There will be a delay in you guys getting your commission paid to you via direct deposit because of the recording. Plus, we're not paying you out until we get a copy of the closing statement anyway. So if a DA is approved, what Shawn is talking about is wiring your portion of the commission directly to you, not wiring the gross commission to Maximum One.
Thank you for clarifying that, Dana. Absolutely, you're right. I was referring to their individual commissions, which, of course, you've seen the emails from Dana regarding the protocols that must be followed in order to accomplish a successful DA. And, of course, we are happy to accommodate those, provided that they're sent to us prior to the closing and that they are approved by the brokerage. But wires, if you wish to have your funds wired directly to your account, that's not a problem for us. If you would prefer taking a check as well as a Maximum One check on the closing statement, after closing, I'll be happy to make arrangements to get those to you. Again, we're going to be providing them to you in a socially distant fashion so that we don't get too close to you and potentially infect you or vice versa. If
So,
you guys put the, go ahead, Dana.
I'm sorry. No, this is Roz. I'm sorry.
Hi, Rosalind.
Hey, to Dana's point, does that mean that that tiny stipulation that the agent needs to be present at the closing to get the DA, is that waived temporarily?
It's not an issue on my side, that's on Dana's side, but as long as you're present, either via phone, audio, or in the parking lot, my position is that I don't have an issue with it unless Dana tells me differently.
Gotcha.
Obviously, the closing attorneys are not allowing agents, and Shawn is by far in line with every other closing attorney, not every, but the majority, 99% of the closing attorneys we're seeing are not allowing agents in the closing. They are allowing them in the parking lot at a socially acceptable distance per the CDC guidelines. So if a DA is approved, yes, if you are still going to that closing attorney's office to be there in a socially distant, safe fashion, then yes, that is attending the closing. If you're just not showing up at all, you're still going to have to go by there at some point and pick it up. And that is dependent on a closing attorney's procedures and guidelines. It's going to be much faster for you guys if you just direct your closing attorney to mail us one check, just like you used to get paid traditionally. It'll be one check for the gross commission, payable to maximum one. Mail it to the office along with the closing statement. Normally, it's up to you guys to scan that closing statement and upload it into Pipeline. Right now, with everything going on, our branch managers, if they're getting that mail, they are opening your mail. They are scanning the closing statements, uploading them into your transaction in Pipeline, cash, and then we are sending you your commission via direct deposit.
And thank you for clarifying on all that, Dana. Just to make sure everybody's clear on my position. My position is I would like to, and I am attempting to bend over backwards to make it work for everybody's personal preferences as long as we are able to. And that goes so far as to telling me if you would like me to, if you cannot be at closing and you'd like to have your check and your settlement statement delivered to the Douglasville office, I'm happy to accommodate that. Again, like Dana indicated, the preference is to have the brokerage check mailed to them with the settlement statement. We can easily accommodate that the day of closing. If you are coming by to pick up a check and a settlement statement, or you want your funds wired to you, we're going to accommodate that. So please reach out to me via email or my staff via email and just direct us as how you would like your funds handled. We'll be happy to accommodate any way we can, as long as we are maintaining that social distance, number one, and following the protocols of the brokerage, number two. In no particular order of importance there.
Shawn, I've got one more question from Martha Edwards. She says sometimes she needs to be in the closing to help with Spanish-speaking clients.
No te preocupes, puedo asistir. That's about my Spanglish knowledge right there. So yes, that's a great point. And if that is required, we have not had that come up yet, actually, fortunately, but if that does become an issue, we would create a, I'd want the agent to make me aware of that language barrier ahead of time. And we would create an area that we could have the agent sitting about 10 feet away from the party signing that needs the translation. And then I'd be on the other side of the table. So we would still make that work, of course. If anybody prefers having a online or remote closing, we're able to accommodate that. The governor has allowed temporarily the use of remote notarizations. I don't know if that's been spoken about here yet today, Dana, or not. But that being said, there is the option of getting onto certain website platforms. Originally, it was limited to Google Meet, Zoom, and a few other platforms. They are talking about extending that to FaceTime, as well as other more convenient platforms for people to get to. But my point being is we're not utilizing remote closings as of yet unless we have a request for one, truthfully because there's more work involved on all parties' side to get that closing set up to be able to work remotely, including the technology that the parties have to have, as well as we have to have a witness present, as well as the attorney and notary present. We also have to get certificates signed to record with the documents when we're using remote notarizations. So I've found that the hoops to jump through in order to accomplish a fully remote closing where we're all in different places on video doing the execution of documents is actually a little bit more time consuming and burdensome than it is just to play it safe and make sure everybody's protected out in the parking lot and staying 10 feet apart. It gets the job done much more efficiently, in my opinion, as well as enables people to get their funds if they want to at the closing table.
And in general, the e-closings or the remote closings, that's not necessarily even an attorney thing. That is totally dependent also if a lender allows it. There are a lot of lenders that are not allowing e-closings.
Good point. On those lines, Linda, is your office allowing e-closings, do you know?
I can get you a list of exactly what we're allowing. I really don't have all the specifics yet, but corporate's supposed to be letting us know today.
Great.
And I can email that over to you and to you, Dana, with exactly what we're going to be allowing. We had to get with each attorney and with each investor to see what they were doing, to see what Georgia was going to allow.
Great. I appreciate you clarifying that.
You could do, Shawn, like for a situation where Martha asked where there's Spanish-speaking clients, even if they're doing a parking lot closing, you could do like
FaceTime. Absolutely.
Just with Martha in her car a few feet away.
Absolutely. There's all kind of ways of accomplishing that depending on where the parties are. In translator, if the translator is present, we can do it via phone or even FaceTime like you indicated. But we're happy and wanting to accommodate any way we can, recognizing these are unprecedented times. So we're just basically, as we have new challenges or new hurdles, we figure out the easiest and most efficient way to overcome them. But right now it's not created a problem. I've been very blessed. I've probably handled 50 parking lot closings in the, well, maybe not that many, but several. And I've not had one day of inclement weather where we couldn't do it outside. So it's been beautiful weather to enjoy outside, and people are actually, for the most part, happy to be out there and, you know, feeling safe out there signing their documents. Do encourage your clients when they come to closing to wear gloves and a mask, please, for everybody's safety. And of course, we're going to want to make sure that we keep them socially distant. So if you see myself in a closing in the parking lot at the table, please don't bring your clients over to say hello and shake hands and introduce. We don't want them there. It's nothing personal. We want them to stay back until we're through with the party that is signing, and then we'll call them to the table to sign as well. I want to mention another potential issue that might be coming up. This came up with an Maximum One agent actually this week, and thankfully we're getting past and overcoming the issue. Certain counties are not keeping their records updated, and as a result, the title insurance companies that we're working with are taking the approach, and Dana, I'm not sure if you've heard this or not yet, but they're taking the approach that we cannot insure title from certain counties, and one of those counties is becoming a problem is Cobb. With that being said, I'm able to overcome that issue. I have been able to overcome that issue by going through GSCCCA and doing my own updates, even if I can't get an examiner to certify the title for me. And in the situation I'm talking about, thankfully, the title was run by my office a year and a half ago, and we closed on this individual selling. He was purchasing it a year and a half ago, so we have the back chain. It's a lot easier for us to have to work off of, you know, a prior title than have to go and try to start and reinvent the wheel. On those lines, if you are able to ask your seller clients if they have a copy of their owner's title policy, wherever the county the property may be located in, that would be a huge benefit to enabling us to get these title searches accomplished more easily if we're working on them remotely through GSCCCA. Website only goes back so far, and if we're trying to get a full 50 or even 100-year search, we may have to, unfortunately, rely on that title policy in order to get the deal done. With that being said, I'm happy to accommodate any way I can. If you have an issue involving your notification from closing, whether it be my office or differently, that we're having an issue, please reach out to me. I've been able to overcome that issue, like I said, with going through different hoops and getting approvals through my title company directly. We're also noticing counties encouraging e-recording. Go ahead, Dana.
Just a question, with Governor Kemp opening the state back up May 1st, have you heard anything? I know the Georgia Supreme Court has certain overlays governing the court system, but do you think that these title issues you've been experiencing for searching and so forth and so on are going to change?
I do, but I don't know if it's going to be immediate or not. It'll be interesting to see fully reopen, and it might be on a county by county basis that they do this. But I do anticipate this restriction being lifted, especially being this is government courthouse, and there are individuals that will go in there and run titles with safety measures. I will say this: I'm not wanting to get into a political discussion about what is the right choice. We're in unprecedented times, as I've indicated. We don't know, but my office and myself will be continuing to take a very cautionary approach to things in the days to come. We're not going to be lifting restrictions on our side, and I mean that, or I mean to indicate that for everybody's protection, not to be difficult. We want to accommodate any way we can, but more importantly, we want to make sure everybody stays safe, and we do have the potential of passing this thing around in the event that we don't have ourselves adequately protected, and you guys and your clients. So please recognize that we're doing everything we can to make it work as easily as we can for you, but at the end of the day, we are going to limit the interaction for right now, even with these restrictions being lifted, for everybody's safety. Are there any questions that I can answer for anybody regarding closing practices? Like I said, I'll email you all my cell phone number, and my email address and phone number at the office still gets to us, so we're available to help any way we can.
I've got a little bit question more about that title. So does that mean that right now you can't close, or does that mean there's going to be a gap in title? Is it something that could close now and be corrected later? Is it something that a buyer is going to have to remember when they go to sell their house several years from now, or how? Just explain a little bit more what's going on with titles.
Good question. First of all, what we're doing on our end is we're updating the title either the day before or the day of closing to get the most current report we can get. Usually a title is considered current within 30 days of it being run. we are now having a report, and whatever it was run, if it was run a week ago or a month ago, we're updating it the day before the closing or the day of the closing to get the most current information. Most importantly is that your clients who are purchasing property buy title insurance for themselves. They need that owner's title policy. Most enhanced policies of title insurance, if we're able to offer it, will provide that gap protection that Dana's talking about. So the record lag time will be covered if there is, God forbid, a lien or other issue filed during that gap period. But to answer and address your specific question, Dana, we are able to close on them with title company approval, and it's on a case-by-case basis as to how far back that gap period goes if they'll allow us to close. 3 weeks ago, Fulton was 4 days behind. They're now 3.5 weeks behind. So they have not updated the records pretty much at all in the past few weeks. Certain counties are not updating their deed records. So it really is depending on a case-by-case basis. Fortunately, we've got more than one title company we can go to try to get approval to insure over. First American, I will say, has been very, thus far, lenient with us in enabling us to get closing. They have a clause they may require us to include on title insurance policies, not so much on the lender's policy, because recognize probably won't approve it if we have to have that restriction. But in the owner's policy, it may indicate that the policy is subject to any gap periods created by the coronavirus pandemic that affected our country. And they are working through this as we speak to those waters. But in a few weeks from now, it may not be an issue if they open the courthouses back up. Did I answer your question, Dana?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. And again,
guys, what other questions you have for Shawn?
I will comment real quickly. One more thing I want to mention to you all. Most of you should know this, and I'm hoping that everybody does know this, but as of January, I did merge with Don Defoor's office. I still have Horan Law Group as my own practice. I'm also of counsel with Don Defoor, and we are partnering up to form Defoor and Horan and Defoor. I'm not sure how the language is going to be in the official name as we get that set up. The intent of that was to provide more and enhanced customer service for our clients with a well-oiled machine that's been out there. Don's been practicing for close to 50 years now, and his staff do a phenomenal job from my experience. I'm looking at just names. Martha's closed with me, Rosalind's closed with me, and several other names that are here in this meeting can attest to very smooth closings going off these days, thankfully, as well as good customer feedback from clients who are closing with us with the experiences they're having. So with that all being said, the intent for me to join up with Don's office is really to provide more service and have more support on our end to be able to accomplish closings in a more organized and efficient fashion. But if there are questions that come up, I'm always available via email or phone call, and I want to make sure I address any concerns that come up. If you need help drawing up a special stipulation for your contract of court pandemic, Dana's already done a great job providing a bunch of language. Hopefully you're seeing these in her weekly email she sends out on Sunday. But that being said, if you have a question that I can help with in drafting a specific term or provision for a special stipulation, I've already helped a few agents out with that, and I'm happy to help as I'm able.
Shawn, I just would love your feedback on a couple of things. The GAR COVID-19 special stipulation. Last month they came out with this COVID-19 special stip, and I talked about it just at the beginning of the meeting. That basically is for delays in closing, but no protection for termination. GAR just revised it last week. I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to see that. If not, I'll send it to you. And there's language in the revision that does allow for a buyer to terminate if the termination is based on a COVID-19 related event, that they have specified, and can terminate and pay their earnest money. But losing their job or a furlough is not a protection. Now, in general, I did talk about that regardless that this special stip has been authored by GAR, it's not law, you guys. It's not law, and it's not part of the contract unless a buyer and a seller agree. So if you want to just talk about talking to our agents about things they can do or special stipulations maybe you've written or seen, in these situations where everything was fine and then all of a sudden something changed, and how that affects the contract with termination and things like that.
Well, just to comment as well, you mentioned that Guardian come out with these new guidelines and they do not include loss of job as a valid reason. But as you brought up, the contract is an agreement between the parties. The parties can contract to agree upon whatever they so choose and whatever is negotiated in there. So depending on if you're on the buyer side or the seller side, you may or may not want to include additional provisions to provide safeguards for yourself, whether it be a contingency upon sale of property, a contingency upon other issues that might come up due to the pandemic going on, and your ability to either get to closing or to be able to purchase a property based on changed circumstances. So one thing I would say is, by all means, you need to have good communication with your clients to find out what situation they're in, what may happen in the future, if you're going to be binding them under contract to buy a property, to make sure that you have them protected if the unforeseen should occur. And again, right now we're still finding out new things occurring out there that were unforeseen but are still occurring. So I have not seen thus far a lot of special stipulations. I think it's still too new. I've seen a few contracts, including a few from Maximum One agents, that are actually employing the special stipulation that you drafted up, or that we drafted up a few weeks ago, Dana. So I'm glad to see that that's included there. Have you spoken about that special stipulation?
The showing protocol?
Yes.
Yeah, no, we haven't spoken about that specifically.
Okay. Well, there is a great special stipulation that Dana has put in there for protection of the agents, to make sure that you guys all stay safe during this time, and to make sure that the parties follow the requirements to keep themselves and the agents all safe. But what I was getting at with respect to the agent side and making sure that they're communicating with their clients is, you want to make sure you know what your client's has going on in their life. Do they have other issues? Do they have the potential to have to leave town for an extended period of time to care for family? Do they have other financial problems that might develop as a result of this? These are all types of examples that can potentially affect their ability to close. On the seller side, you might have issues involving the seller not being able to get approved for the new house after they've gotten under contract to sell their current house, even if they have equity to put down. So because of the changes in the world right now, there's a lot of unknowns out there. So I think the best way to address it is to have open communication with your clients. And in the event that there is some type of special stipulation, I have not reviewed the new GAR special stip, by the way, Dana. So if you would send that to me, I'd appreciate it. When did that, curiosity, was it end of last week?
Yes, it came out on the 17th.
I heard it was coming out, but I had not actually seen it. So I would be interested in seeing that if you have that.
I'll email it to you right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But at any rate, if there are questions that come up as you're trying to navigate through these times, again, reach out to your brokerage for questions on that end. If you have questions for the closing attorney, please, even if it's not a closing I'm handling, my goal is to make sure that your transactions go as smoothly as possible. I will say I've noticed a lot of accommodation and understanding among the agents that have worked with us. So thank you guys for your recognition that we're doing this to make sure you all stay safe and to protect all parties involved in the closing. We are not bringing you into the office right now. We are not allowing you to come in the office right now for your safety. We do have a box in the lobby. If you need to drop something off for us, you can always put it in the box in the lobby. We also have the ability for you to email or call me. I'm up to the office daily. It's just a different time each day when I'm there, depending on when my closings are. And I can always make arrangements to meet with you, so you can drop it off and I can grab and process it. For the most part, we are requesting that earnest money funds get wired to us. We don't wish to, have to touch the check and also have to go through the deposit process. It's much easier in today's world to be able to get those funds if we're holding the earnest money via wire. If you need to do it via check, though, or money order for one reason or another, we can accommodate that as well. But we do prefer the wire if possible. If there are any questions, again, I'm happy to answer them, whether it be now or if you want to email me or call me, feel free to do so.
Hey, Shawn, it's Roz again.
Hey, Roz.
Hey, I have a quick question. Dana mentioned force majeure earlier, and I know you weren't on quite yet. Are you able to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, as you probably know, and I wasn't on it, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what Dana spoke about, but right now, GAR, I don't think the RE forms either, but correct me if I'm wrong, Dana. I don't believe, okay, yeah, neither one of them has that clause in there. And what that clause basically does is prevents, the parties being locked in either side from a bad deal or being able to back out of the deal in the event that some unforeseen act of God occurs. I'll be probably revising this next year when the forms committee meets to draft a new GAR contract on, but for right now, there is not that clause in there. However, there is nothing illegal about contracting to include that language in a special stipulation or other area of the contract if you so choose to protect your client with the clause that enables them to back out. So Dana, unless you know something I don't know, because I know you're very current with respect to developments on that end, I would recommend that the agents actually start including some type of language of that nature, some type of force majeure clause in their contracts as a special stipulation if their clients are concerned or want to be protected to be able to back out based on that. And again, as long as it's not illegal, I don't see an issue with it being included as long as the parties both, agree to the term.
We just addressed the fact at the beginning of the meeting that without that clause in there, if a buyer is no longer qualified for changes based on what's going on in the world and has to terminate, even if it's because things change because of COVID-19, they're still going to be in default of the contract. Contract law is still contract law regardless of a state of emergency. And I just mentioned the fact that the iBuyers contracts where they're terminating, they are getting their earnest money back because those iBuyer contracts do have a force majeure clause in there. GAR used to, doesn't now, will probably be back in there.
Right.
I am not an attorney and would not know how to draft that special stip to share with our agents. Again, you can put it in, you can negotiate for that as a special stipulation or as an amendment, but the buyer and the seller need to agree. But Shawn would love your help in drafting the special stip, adding the force majeure.
Making a note about that now.
To share.
In the meantime, if there's a situation that comes up, and you need something in there, reach out to me and I'll put something together immediately. But I will work on getting a formal one drafted this week for us, Dana, to be able to have included in the future. Making a note about that right now.
I did also, you guys, just remember that as Shawn said earlier, your buyers and sellers can agree to anything, including if a buyer does have to terminate and contractually they're in default. The seller is more than willing, if the seller agrees in writing on that release form to give the buyer back their earnest money, or they can negotiate for that. If we get both buyer and seller signatures on that, the holder can split up those funds that we're holding in any manner that the buyer and the seller choose to direct us.
And as Dana and I have both seen in the past, I will tell you, usually the earnest money funds being held are in the $500 to a couple $1,000 range. If there's a dispute and the parties have to resolve it, we have to interplead the funds. The cost of doing that oftentimes exceeds the amount of earnest money we're holding, and it becomes kind of a waste of time and money on everybody's part because the parties will end up fighting over nothing because there'll be nothing left. So we always encourage people to really try to work out the issue before having the funds interpled to the court. Unless you're talking about major money that's in dispute, but for the most part, if you're talking about $500 to a couple thousand, it's going to be in the party's best interest to work something out. Even if they have to both suffer a little bit of a loss, they'll at least keep something rather than both ending up with nothing when the funds, get depleted through the court action.
And the civil courts have not yet opened up. I'm sure the Georgia Supreme Court will have a ruling about that soon based on Governor Kemp's issues. So if we do have to interplead funds, that hearing is not going to be heard for quite a long time because there's such a backlog in all of the civil courts. That has to go with landlords and tenants and all kinds of issues, divorces, things like that. So if you're working with clients that are in the middle of a divorce and something about proceeds from their house have to go through the divorce court, that might be a situation where the buyer where that party agrees to just escrow their proceeds dependent on, you know, if the divorce court does have to get involved in that. I'm not sure how long it'll take for the court systems for actual hearings to get back up and running. And again, I anticipate the Georgia Supreme Court will make a ruling on that fairly soon.
Definitely. I agree.
All right, you guys, any more questions? Heidi, do you have anything to say before we leave?
Oh, by the way, I'm noticing a question from Fran that came over just to address. She's saying, why 10-foot distance instead of the 6 feet that's required? Is there a specific reason? The reason is, truthfully, new, and I have the benefit of being married to a nurse practitioner who's up on top of everything on a daily basis. So now they're coming up with determinations that appears that it can stay in the air for up to 10 to 12 feet. So in an abundance of caution, we want to make sure you stay safe. I understand your clients, you can still be with them. You can be sitting inside the car and hearing what's going on. You can be with them on the phone, on FaceTime. We are not preventing you from being present. We are making sure you stay a safe distance away. And because of new information that's come out saying that this virus can actually stay up to 10 or 12 feet, we're pushing it back a little bit further. I'm trying to push it back a little further, I should say. A good question.
Brent says he heard 13 feet.
Very possible, Shauna. I'll check with my wife on that one. But yeah, I mean, as far as we can socially keep ourselves, you know, the better we'll all be, I feel, for safety. I think we're a little safer being outside as compared to inside an enclosed room. And for the most part, we will be as long as the weather permits. But, you know, the further apart we can be, I agree. We were using 6 feet as our guide, and I increased it a few more feet to play it a little safer. But it very well maybe 13 feet out there. I just know that they've been go further than 6 feet and closer to 10 or 15. So.
And Heidi wants me to let you guys know that she is sanitizing the office on a regular basis and seeing when people come in and people come out. She knows what they've touched, what they haven't touched. And we are maintaining the CDC protocol guidelines for the offices as well. And Heidi, and when Michelle's in the office, if there are more than 10 people or 8 people in there, they will ask you guys to wait outside until somebody does leave. So we are still maintaining the CDC guidelines. And that was in part of Governor Kemp's announcement yesterday as well, is that even when everything gets opened up, again, some things are opening Friday, some things Monday, like restaurants and movie theaters. And the shelter in place order is not being renewed. It's in place right now through April 30th. The actual Georgia health state of emergency is in effect till May 13th. So there's a couple of different little issues that are going on there if you hear different dates. That's what the shelter in place is through April 30th. The health state of emergency is through May 13th. Everything else is opening up. But per Governor Kemp's recommendation, businesses are still maintaining the CDC guidelines for social distancing, cleanliness, so forth and so on. We will see as things progress what happens. I was asked at the beginning of the class if we're still going to do CE classes virtually, definitely through May regarding sales meetings. I don't have an answer to that if we're going to have an in-person sales meeting May. I have a feeling we will probably wait until June because even if we have an in-branch sales meeting, I don't think we're going to get the attendance that we're getting here. And I think it's more important for you guys to have the information. So stay tuned for that.
If you get a chance, read Martha's comment. I loved it. If anybody gets too close to you, start coughing. They'll back up real quick.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. You guys, there are buyers and sellers out there that need your help. They still have to move. Go bless them with your real estate license, your experience, and your knowledge. And we are here to support you guys. Thank you, Shawn, so much. Thank you, Linda. Linda had to go. And I see agents are dropping off. So thank you guys so much. Go help people. Use the emails, use the support email, and you all have Shawn's contact information and he will email you as well. Also, in the Sunday email I send out every Sunday, there is a ton of information in there. And Shawn's contact information as well as Linda's is at the very bottom of every email that comes out every Sunday, as well as the vendor tab. If you go to eagentweb.com and look at that tile, there's information there too. Thank you, guys. Anything else, Shawn?
No, we're all good on my end. If you need anything, reach out to me anytime.
All right, everybody, stay healthy. Thank you. Bye.